Okay, so Be'ezras Hashem, we're continuing with our weekly shirim on the Ramchal's Adir BaMarom, and we're continuing with our discussion about Tal, about the morning dew that descends down each and every day to fill the mind of Zer Anpin from the Moichin of Chachmas Tima'a, the emergence of the highest levels of illumination connected to Arich Anpin that descend down into the functional models of Ze'er Anpin. And we spoke about how there are two forms of Tal. There's the Tal that comes down to fill the mind each and every day. That comes from the Yud, Hey, Vav, when spelled out with Aleph, which is the Gematria of 39, which comes down from the Chachmas Tima'a and it emerges into Zer Anpin. And then there's the additional level of dew, which is going to be the Gematria 39 that comes from the letters that follow Shem Havaya, which is Chaf Vav, Zayin Vav, which is also the Gematria of 39. So we see that there's two forms of dew that come down each and every day to illuminate the soul in its capacity to face the world today. There's the stabilized moichin, which come down from Chachmas Tima'a in the secret of Yud Hey Vav, which is the Gematria of Tal. And then there's the secondary effulgence of dew that comes down from above, and it awakens Malchus herself, which is the secret of Tchias HaMesim, which is the Tal that comes from Chaf Vav, Zayin Vav. So there are these two forms of Tal that are coming down each and every day. We've spoken about how the ultimate rectification of the worlds is the balancing act between lights and vessels. The chaotic realms of Tohu broke down because there was too much light and the vessels were unable to contain them. Therefore, the rectification process, or the order of rectification, is the development of valves that conceal the divine light as it flows down, yet at the very same point enable that divine light to be illuminated. The goal is not to reduce the intensity of the light, but rather the goal is to develop robust vessels that enable the dual activity of a vessel. On the one hand, the vessel contains the light that comes into it, but on the other hand, equally important to the role of the vessel is that by way of containing it now enables a revelation that won't be overwhelming. And so the main place in which we encounter the beginning of the vessels is Chachmas Tima'a. We spoke about how the ascendant realms of the Moichin, which are the Gilgalta and the Avira Dachya, and Reshad Lois Yada, how they all belong to the upper realms of HaKadosh Baruch Hu's Shefa, and Chachmas Tima'a, the emergence of concealed wisdom, which holds the Gevura Ha'elyona within it, which is the source of the Kav Hamida, this possibility of differentiation and diminution for the sake of revelation, that's taking place in Chachmas Tima'a. And this is what the Arizal means when he brings in the name of the Ramak and Rabbeinu Peretz, that by the Kadmoinim, Chachma was oriented towards Gevura. Now, even though according to the typical arrangement of what we understand as being the way things work, Chachma is chesed, Chachma is illumination, Chachma is ease. But from the perspective of Chachma Stima'a, which is that Chachma, in spite of the fact that it's the loftiest realms, nevertheless it serves as the bottom edge of the loftiest realms. In that place, Chachma Stima'a is going to be seen as the source of dinim and gvuros and containment and constriction for the eventual emergence of order down below. These dinim, the gvuros of Chachmas Tima'a, express themselves in the 13 rectifications of the beard. The beard, which are referred to as hard hairs, they're sa'irin to kifin, they represent din. Now, even though it's an illuminated space, nevertheless, it's the emergence of constriction. That's why the Yud Gimel Tikkunei Dikna, which correspond to the 13 midos of HaKadosh Baruch Hu's compassion, they're not just unbridled compassion. It's not just the pure effulgence of divine light, but rather it's built upon our crying out. When we awaken the Yud Gimel Midos of Rachamim, so then the Yud Gimel Midos of Rachamim are going to be awoken. By dint of the fact that they're connected to din, there already is going to be a bi-directionality to it, where I have to awaken the desire in order for the desire to come down. Pure chesed doesn't need an awakening from below. Only din needs an awakening from below. So the hairs of the beard, in spite of the fact that they represent the emergence of the rectification from above, the rachamim rabim, nevertheless, they're also an element of din because they are constriction and containment valves that enable that light to descend down. What the Ramchal is going to teach us is that there's two elements to the hairs of the beard. There's two elements to the tikkunim of the dikna, to the rectification of the beard, which on the one hand is emergent from the highest realms of unity, but on the other hand is the bridge in which unity expresses itself down into disunity. There's going to be the hairs of the beard itself, which are one form of tal, and there's going to be the illumination that comes down through the hairs themselves, which is going to be another form of tal. Both expressions of the effulgence from above down through the constriction valves down below is going to be the process of the rectification of the vessels, which is tchias hamesim, the shattering of the vessels, the loss of light as it departed from the vessel itself during Shviras HaKelim. That's the source of death, all forms of difficulty, all forms of constriction, and all of the degradations that take place on a day-to-day, moment-to-moment basis. Rectification is all of the uplifting, all of the tchias hamesim, that is not only something that's going to happen in the future, but something that's happening right here, right now, on a regular basis, as the Leshem Shalom V'Chaloma teaches us, that in the end of the day, we come to find that everything is an active participation in the secret of tchias hamesim, because everything is perpetually getting better and better and better, and ascending and refining and ascending and refining from within that realm of the chaotic kings that died originally in the Shviras HaKelim, and everything is in a perpetual process of getting better and better and better, ascending, 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 and that's the secret of tchias hamesim, and that's being done through the Yud Gimel Tikkunei Dikna, which is the source of where that tal tchia is coming down from, and those are the two forms of tal. And so now the Ramchal is going to explain to us the role that each of these forms of tal play, and more important, why the concept of tchias hamesim is something so fundamental for us. It's not simply something that's going to be revealed in the future. It's not simply a ye'ud, a future destination point in which Hashem comes and is machayim mesim, but rather, as we say in the bracha of Gvuros each and every day, 3 times in Shmona Esrei, the active process of tchias hamesim is already taking shape. Every time there's a movement upwards from any level of concealment, that's already an element of tchias hamesim. So Zak the Heilige Ramchal. I'm going to explain myself, and based on what I said, Ki b'shem chaf vav zayin vav, which are the letters below the shem havaya, which represent the secondary form of dew. Niftachim hakvarim. This is going to be that source that awakens the dead, that opens up the kvarim, that opens up malchus, and enables all of that which is stuck in that place to come out in a state of rectification. V'hu sod gadol, and this is a tremendous secret. It's what we say each day in the pasuk, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu, you restore life to us by way of your grace, and you rejuvenate the dead with an immense amount of compassion. Each and every day, immense amount of compassion. So we see there's two elements. There's Mechalkel Chaim b'Chesed. There's the Chaim and the Chesed that brings about life, and there's also the Mechayim Mesim Barachamim Rabim that we say in the Birchas of Gevuros. And so we see that already in the process of Tchias hamesim, we're making reference to 2 stages, and these are going to correspond to the 2 stages of the morning dew. There are 2 ways in which the beard of Arachanpin, the Yud Gimel Tikkunei Dikna, which become the most fundamental interspace between the ascendant realms of infinity above and the concealed realms of finitude below, the beard, the strong hairs of the beard, the Yud Gimel Tikkunei Dikna, become fundamental in this intermediary bridge-like role. They're the Gesher Tzar Ma'od Ma'od that connects above and below. And there's 2 elements that take shape in this beard, which represents the main way in which HaKadosh Baruch Hu is relating to us. The first one is Inyan HaSa'aros Atzmam Vehim Hatzinoros HaShefa. The first one is the casings, the vessels of the Tikkunei Dikna, which are the hairs themselves, that they're hollowed out in their inner interiority, and that's the Shefa, that's the pipeline through which the Shefa is going to be taking place. That's the body of the beard itself. And then, in addition to that, the Inyan HaShefa Shabatoch HaSa'aros, there's the Shefa that's coming down through the beard. The beard represents, like any other thing that we encounter in this world, a chitzonius and a panemius, a vessel and a light. The vessel is the beard hairs themselves, or the proverbial beard hairs, and the light is the content that's flowing through the beard hairs. Like the tzaddikim say, that this is why tzaddikim, when they're learning Torah, they stroke their beard to awaken all of this ability to draw down the light. So we see there's the hair, which is the funnel that brings down the light, and then there's the light that's inside of that funnel. Both of these, both the hairs and the tikkunim and the light that comes through the hair, through the rectification, through the diminishment, Both of those are emergent from Chachmas Tima'a. They come from that lofty place of Chachmas Tima'a, which is the beginning of the development of those pathways of expression that reduce the light so it can be received. The Hakol Besod Tal, and all of it is in the secret of Tal. All of it is in the secret of Dew. Dew becomes the primary metaphor through which HaKadosh Baruch Hu conveys to us the way that he's being mashpia his or down here to us. That it's coming down by way of Tal. Each and every day, the light is there already. Each and every day, the light is prepared. Each and every day, the goodness is available. There's two types of tal. There's two types of dew, like we said. The first dew is the shem yud hey vav, yud vav dalet hey aleph vav, which is the chesed din and the rachamim of those mochim that come from chachmas tima'a to be mislabesh and garb themselves in the mind of zer anpin. That's the gematria of tal. The reason we're missing the last hey is because that's the resh of loas yada, which expresses itself as the malchus, that vessel that holds those three lights. But the first form of tal is yud hey vav, which is gematria 39. And the second form of tal is Shem Kuzu, which is Chaf Vav Zayin Vav, which is also Gematria 39. So we see we have these two names, these two representations of the processes through which HaKadosh Baruch Hu is revealing himself. And the names, obviously, they hint towards that which is taking shape within them. The names are not the end-all, be-all, but they're the vessel that contains the light that's taking place through them. So when we contemplate these names, we're grasping the whole process. But suffice it to say that there are these two forms of tal, which correspond to the two forms of the beard and the light that comes down from the beard. Now, the beginning of the rectification of the vessels that broke because of the over inundation of light and the vessels that were too weak to receive it, that gets fixed by the sa'aros of the dikna, the growth of the beard, which represents diminution for the sake of revelation, constriction for the sake of expansion, vessels for the sake of the emergence of light, darkness for the revelation of redemption. All of this is hinted to in the dikna, in the beard itself. And the beard itself is the beginning of the tikkun of the Malchim Kadmin, those 7 original kings of chaos that descended down into this worldliness and created this bilbul dika place, this concealed place, which is all over the place. The beginning of that rectification begins through the rectification of the beard of Arich Anpin. And this is the matter of Tchias HaMesim. Fixing the broken vessels, Tikkun HaOlam, is not simply rectifying the world so that HaKadosh Baruch Hu could finally reveal himself in it in a clear way. It's the active participation in elevating that which is fallen, that which is broken, that which is despised, and bringing it back up to a place of clarity and builtness. That's the active process of Tchias HaMesim. Shahakelim chazru v'netaknu lekabel oreseihem umikan noilad kol minei tikkunim habayim achar hakilkulim bein beklal ubein beprat. The matter of Tchias HaMesim is the restoration of the vessels so that they're now prepared and strong enough to receive the light that has been waiting to be received. And from that point forward, once the beginning of the rectification has taken place by way of diminishing the light, all of the different tikkunim, all of the rectifications that are going to follow, which are going to fix all of the particular deficiencies in existence, whether on the general quality of existence or in the particular quality of existence, all of the birurim, all of the rectifications, all of the tikkun ha'olam, all of the clarification of brokenness for the sake of alignment and clarification are all contained within the beard of Arich Anpin itself. Because we're talking about literal Tchias HaMesim, the tikkunim of the broken vessels, the elevation of disorderliness back into a space of order. That is Tchias HaMesim, and not only that, but that's taking place each and every day in Yeshuos as well, in the daily reprieve that we have from concealment. Shehigam kein inyan Tchias HaMesim. Both of these things are taking place by way of the forms of Tal, the Yeshuos and the Tchias HaMesim. Now, Tchias HaMesim happens through the Shem Chaf Vav Zayin Vav V'hu Tal Nukfi. Now, we said that Tchias HaMesim doesn't take place from the first form of Tal. The first form of Tal, which is the Yud Hey Vav, is the establishment of the organized mochim that come down from Chachmas Tima'a and settle in the masculine mind of Zer Anpin. But it's the secondary form of dew that's associated with the Acharayim, the Chaf Vav, Zayin Vav, which becomes the feminine form of dew, which comes down from the back and it goes through the neck in order to awaken the moichin within Zer Anpin to then give it over to Nukva, which is the secret of Tchias HaMesim. So we see the two forms of dew have two different tasks. The first form has to come down and prepare the moichin within Zer Anpin, that's the Yud Hey Vav, and the second form of dew, which is Chaf Vav Zayin Vav, which is the feminine form of dew, which comes to awaken Tchias HaMesim. Perish. What does this mean, says the Ramchal? In that level of chachma stima, that place of arach anpin, that lofty place of divine unity that reveals itself down here in the realm of disunity, there's two elements to it. Bechinas atzma shehi nukva, bechinas masha lekeches min hazachar shala shehi kitra. Now, chachma stima, like we said, even though it's the loftiest place of chachma, nevertheless, in relationship to that which precedes it, the light of Reish Lo Asyada and the Gulgalta and the Avira, chachma stima is going to be considered in a keva, and that's why it's going to be considered as din, which is why it's the Yud Gimel Tikunei Dikna of chachma stima, which become the receptacles of constraint and concealment, even though they're a masculine quality. They have the element of a nukva because they represent the lowest realm of those upper moichin. And in addition to that vessel-like orientation of chachma stima'a, there's the light of the Gulgalta, which is the zachar that it's bringing down, which is the light of the keser. Al kein yesh beis talalim nukvi v'zichri. Because within the Moicha Stima'a, because within Chachma Stima'a, there's these two gendered roles. There's the Nekeva element of it, and then there's the light that it's receiving, which is the masculine light of it. So that's going to express itself in the two forms of du. V'hanukvi hu ze ha chav vav zayin vav, the feminine form of du that awakens redemption, that awakens tchias hamesim, is going to be hinted to in the name chav vav zayin vav, which is the acharayim of the Shem Havaya. And that is shining within the beard hairs of the dikna itself. The hazichri and the masculine form of du, which is yud hevav, hu mamshech hashefa betoch hasaros. So the beard itself is going to be the feminine quality of the tal, and the light that's coming through the beard itself is going to be the masculine elements of the tal. The zichri, the masculine element, which is yud hevav, is going to be mamshech the shefa within the saros. And that's the secret of Machalkel Chaim b'Chesed, that the Chaim comes from Chesed, that the light comes down through the shame of Yud He Vav, which is the masculine form of Du. Ach Chaf Vav Zayin Vav, but the feminine form of Du, that's the place where Tchias HaMesim is going to take shape. Tchias HaMesim Berachim Rabim. And that's a secret of Chaf Vav Zayin Vav that we said is made for the sake of Tchias HaMesim. That's where the tal is going to come down from the hairs of Arach Anpin down to Zer Anpin, and from there it's going to come down and awaken the dead body of Malchus, like we said, when the head of Zer Anpin bends itself down to allow that dew to drip down. That's going to be ultimately the tachlis of Tchias HaMesim. The Ramchal asks a question. Why is it that the tal, the feminine tal of Chaf Zayin Vav, why is that going to be the name that brings about Tchias HaMesim? Theoretically, it should be the name Yud He Vav, which is the masculine form of Du, which is far more oriented towards rectification and Chesed and Rachamim. So why is it that it's the feminine form of Du that's coming to awaken Tchias HaMesim? How could it be that this Tal Tchia, which is going to rectify all of the broken things, is going to be the secondary form of feminine Du? Theoretically, it should be coming from the masculine expression, which is going to be the Rachamim Rabim, which would be the first form of Tal. What we have to understand is first, we have to understand what this whole process is. What are we doing here? What is the purpose of the light and the dew that's coming down from Chachma Stima'a and going down into the mind of Zer Anpin first and foremost? What is taking place there? Why does Zer Anpin need to receive its lights from Chachma Stima'a? And ultimately, we know that anything that Zer Anpin is receiving is ultimately for the sake of sharing it with Malchus, which is the nukva of Zer Anpin, which is the place that we function. So we have to understand how this process takes place. The Soda Inyanhu, and the secret of the matter is as follows. Pasuk in Shir Hashirim says, "Open up for me, my sister, my beloved, my yoinasi, my tamasi, my perfect one, for my head is filled with dew." Well, Imar Khan in the Idraba, it says as follows: this light that's coming down each and every day, the tal that's coming down from Chachma Stima'a to Zer Anpin, and then Zer Anpin is being mashpia that tal down to Malchus. Malchus and Zer Anpin is saying each and every day to Malchus, Piski liachoisi rayasi yunasi tamasi v'chulei. That place of death, that place of concealment, that place of Malchus, that place of restriction, it's waiting each and every day to have that dew of Zer Anpin emerge downwards into it. Acha emes hi b'chol yom hi madrega pratius hasholetes umeira v'tzarich b'chol yom sheyevaru birurim chadashim men hamalchin kadmin. That the truth of the matter is that each and every day has its own levels, and each and every day has its own rectifications that need to be illuminated, and each and every day has its own process of rectification, of new rectifications that come about from the broken vessels. And these birurim are the element of tchias hamesim of that day. Each and every day has its own tchias hamesim. Each and every day has its own rectification and that which needs to be fixed. And that comes from the shem chaf vav zayin vav, which is the gematria of tal, which represents that feminine form of du. Amnan ha'emes hu sheshem yud he vav hu chesed v'chaf vav zayin vav hu gevura. The truth of the matter is that these two forms of du, this masculine and this feminine form of du, are going to correspond to the same qualities. Masculinity is associated with chesed, that would be yud he vav, and femininity is associated with gevura, which would be chaf vav zayin vav, which again lends us to ask the question of how it is that tchias hamesim is coming from the gevura side of things as opposed to the chesed side of things. And the two forms of these talalim unified together are the secret of gvanei habadoilech, the shining colors of the gemstones, hamuskarim lakaman, that we're going to see in the future. Acha inyan hu, says the Ramchal, the matter is as follows. The truth of the matter is rectifications don't take place by way of chesed, they take place by way of gevura. Gevura is mamtik gevura, din is mamtik din. The shirish of misa is mamtik the misa itself, and that's why the tal that's associated with gevura, which is chaf vav, zayin vav, which is the nekeva element, that's going to be the site of the birurim. Aval zeh kishaha chesed sholet aleha, but it's only when chesed and the light of goodness and kindness is in control of Gevura. Gevura left to its own devices will be destructive, but Gevura, when harnessed properly to become a vessel that illuminates the light of Chesed through it, as he mitakenes ha-kilkulim, then all of the kilkulim, all of the deficiencies are going to be rectified. Aval imhi mitkaberet levada, but if the Gevura of Kuzo is going to be awakened on her own, adarabba zehu choshech v'ha-kilkul miskaber al yada. That's not going to be where the rectification takes place. That's going to create more destruction. The rectification takes place specifically when the gvura, the vessel of feminine dew, it becomes the vehicle for the masculine dew that's descending through it. But we already said that chachma stima, which is the source of all of these rectifications, it's surrounded by the Gulgalta, which is the light of Keser, which is Hashras ha'elyon on the Tachton, to ensure that everything is rooted in Chesed and driving Arich Anpin to go towards Chesed. So as mivareres habirurim ha'elu, that's why it has the ability to rectify its birurim mitzad hanekeva, from Chaf Vav Zayin Vav, which is the shame of Tal, which is rooted in severity, because ultimately the entire process of Chachma Stima is surrounded by the illumination of the Chesed of Keser. And now we can see how it has these two forms of Tal. The Tal goes down to Zer Anpin. And that first form of dew is the hanhaga of Arich Anpin that comes down to sweeten all the severity of Zer Anpin. And then the second form of dew is what Zer Anpin takes from Chachma Stima in order to make the clarifications and bring it down to Malchus. And this is the matter. This is what it means when Zer Anpin is saying to Malchus every day, open up, because ultimately the tikkunim that Zer Anpin is receiving from Chachma Stima'a, there's a major part of it that needs to be delivered down to Malchus to bring rectification to all of those fallen things. This is the secret of Batach Ba Lev Bala V'Shala Lo Yechsar, that Batach Ba Lev Bala, that the heart of her husband, the heart of Zer Anpin, is trusting in Malchus, that Malchus is going to open up and be able to receive this Taltchia, V'Shala Lo Yechsar, and she's not going to be lacking anything. Kihi hanukfa hamivareres min sitra achra, because Malchus is what goes down into the sitra achra, into concealment, in order to be mavar birurim, to rectify the rectifications. And these birurim ascend up into the moichin of Malchus in order to be rectified there. Va'al kain za oimerla, and Zer Anpin says each and every day to Malchus, Pischili sharoishi nim leital, open up for me because my head is dripping down with dew, which is coming down from Arich Anpin, and it's for you, Malchus, to be able to rectify what you need to be able to rectify. V'ha inyan, and the matter is, that as long as the Shechina is an exile, it's like a closed off rose, and all of the rectifications are resting in that place, not yet revealed. But ukesheba'a el hakadosh baruch hu, the element of Zer Anpin, and it's time for those moichin to come down, the rose opens up, and Malchus is ready to receive the light from Zer Anpin, and it's the secret of fill up this vessel with just a little bit water from your pouch, because Malchus is clarifying in her mind what it needs to clarify, and then Zer Anpin takes what's been rectified and what he deserves and clarifies it and brings it up in his mind. And this is the secret. This is why Zer Anpin is bending its head down so that the dew of Arachan can descend down to the place that it needs to go, which is Malchus. That the lights that are descending down into Malchus is the light that the head of Zer Anpin Kavyachal is shaking those lights down. And those are the lights that hang around the edges of Malchus, not yet opened up, not yet revealed. And that's why it's Kvusa Savr. It's the drops of dew that descend in the nighttime that rest on the petals of that rose of the Shechina that's not yet opened. And the reason that they're referred to as Resisei Laila is because ultimately they are coming to the place of Nukva. And here the Ramchal, and with this will end this particular portion, the Ramchal says as follows: Aval be'emes yesh kan soid gadol. There's a big secret here as to why Malchus needs to receive from the heart of her husband. The heart of her husband, meaning to say bina. What's the matter? That her husband places his heart in a state of trust with her, and shalalo yachsar. Shazakarti lamala. I've referenced this above, says the Ramchal. Hine Kasav, Pasuk says, Vahayu einai v'libe sham kol hayamim, that my eyes and my heart should be there all day. Because in truth, Malchus has two sources in this world. It has a source in Bina, and it has a source in Chachma. Ki shnei sharashim yesh lenukva. There's two sources to Malchus. Echad ba'ayin. One is rooted in the eyes of Chachma, that Pnimius Chachma is revealing itself within Malchus, mitzad chachma, and the other one is the leiv, which is the tzad of bina, which expresses itself to the externality of Malchus. Malchus on the outside looks like bina, on the inside it functions like chachma. V'hine begalus amar, but when we find ourselves in a state of exile and Malchus has descended down, uru lamatishan ad Hashem, wake up, why are you staying asleep? Because at that point the inayim are closed. When Malchus descends down into exile and it falls into a place of concealment, the eyes are closed off. Open up your eyes and see, meaning to say that during a time of exile, the eyes are closed and we feel that we don't have access to Chachma. But even if Chachma is not accessible to us, the eyes of Chachma are not. But the heart is awake. Libi air. Bina is always connected to Malchus. That's me imsois oila, that Malchus goes up with bina v'husod ani yeshena v'libi air. I might be asleep, right? Malchus is asleep, Chachma has departed, but the heart is awake, bina is there. When it's time within exile to rectify the rectifications, that's the place where it's only the heart, the bina, that's being mashpia down to Malchus. Because the tikkunim are taking place through bina. And bina is the heart that is the ability of bringing the tikkun of Malchus back up to Zer Anpin. That's the secret that the Ramchal started off with the garment that the mother Bina gives to the daughter in times of exile. This is the secret of the Birurim and Zer Anpin taking that which it needs. Throughout the entirety of exile, the rectifications of redemption are in the midst of taking place. And the head of Zer Anpin is filled with this dew that's ready to rectify all things and to awaken all that is broken. But because the nukva is not open yet and it's not time to reveal it fully, so the drops of dew remain surrounding at the ksavos, at the extremes of the rows of Malchus. And in the end, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to enable Zer Anpin to shake its head and to allow all of that dew to come down. And those drops of dew are going to descend down to Malchus, and that's where true Tchias HaMeis is going to take place. When the true morning arrives, which is the secret of Geulah be'ezras Hashem. So we see how the daily process of receiving our moichin and our consciousness for the day and understanding how infinitude is reducing itself into our finite minds each and every moment, we can begin to understand the rectifications that are available to us in exile for the eventual redemption, and through that the eventual redemption is going to arrive be'ezras Hashem.